Hello guys, welcome back again to my channel. You'll be shocked to hear that Nigeria spent 712 billion naira on corruption last year, with Judiciary earning the most from the corruption. And you wonder why they told us to go to court if anything happens in Nigeria. Remember last year election that was clear that this party won the election, but because they bought the whole judges last year, they told us to go to court. After all the evidence provided to these judges, they said that those evidence were void. This is the reason. But I'd like guys to hear what DELE FAROTIMI said before. I'd like guys to hear that video of how the MBS exposed how Nigeria spent that amount of money and how much the judiciary got from that money that was spent on corruption, and then why they are always telling us to go to court. This is the reason. So I'd like guys to watch that video first, and then I'll be to guys shortly.
Yes. It looks that you are impugning that image, that reputation built over the years. And I'm asking you to substantiate. Tell Nigerians on this platform what exactly was the case. How did he deny you justice through the system?
Sheon,
Mr. Farotimi.
I wrote a book deliberately setting out the facts. I have also been very deliberate in my presentation and speaking about the book since I wrote it, to make sure that nobody is able to say that I have written the book with the intention of scandalizing persons. When I said Ariafe Babalola denied me justice, I laid out the substance of my allegation in the book that I have written. If I begin to deal with the nuts and bolts of it on your podcast or in the press, that's why you've never seen me tweet any part of the allegation or speak about it publicly. I've put it in a book. That is deliberate. It will outlive me and them. It is not beer parlor talk. It is me putting my words in writing. It is indelible. Nobody can touch it again. Before that book was written, my major prayer was that Ariafe Babalola should live to read that book, or at least have somebody read it to him, or at least have somebody tell him about it so that he's able to rebut, and nobody is going to turn around later on and claim that, why didn't you say this when he was alive? In actual fact, that was why I sued him in his lifetime, so that there would be record that I challenged him with the fact when he was alive. And thanks to God, the God who has given all of us life, he has preserved him as he has preserved me. Ariafe Babalola is alive and well. He is well able to challenge the facts as I have laid them out. So when I say that he denied me justice, even you who has read the book, let me just say this. How do you explain that the person who was the chairperson at my wedding was the judge, the chairperson at my wedding, who has not talked to me and has kept a distance and been very malicious towards me since 2003? She has never had a word to say to me. That was the person, my very first employer as a lawyer. That was the judge that the case was assigned to. My case against Ariafe Babalola was assigned to that judge.
And you think that you couldn't have gotten justice?
How could I possibly have gotten justice from a judge who hadn't spoken to me, who was chairperson at my wedding, who was the first person to ever employ me? And that
One will imagine that kind of person would be in your favor, not against you.
Oh, I didn't need anyone to be in my favor. But as I said in the book, the moment the case was assigned to her, I called the former head of chambers and told him, see, they've assigned my case to this woman. If I write a letter demanding that the case be removed, it will be construed as me being malicious. I'll leave it, since she's not the substantive judge. She's meant to be the I can't remember what they call those things. When you file a case, first it goes to a judge before it goes to trial. She was just meant to just take the preliminary issues. But she killed the case before it even went. That's another story, and it's been told. See, justice must not only be done, it must be seen to have been done. She adjourned to rule on a preliminary objection. We wrote 2 letters to the court to find out when the ruling will be delivered, and copied the first chamber. Nobody ever responded. 9 months after her adjournment, she delivered the ruling without even informing us. We just happened to be in court for something else, and we realized that she had delivered her ruling without ever informing us. I have provided more. Look, my own is this. Before the book was written, I was pressured. I was under a lot of personal pressure that I must write this book and it must be in the public space, because none of us will live forever. Now I have written this book. Those who feel aggrieved by the book should do me the favor of suing me. I have not whispered in a beer parlor. I did not talk in some back room somewhere. I have written a book. It is in the public domain. If they are aggrieved, let them go to court. Maybe everybody, they tell us in Nigeria, go to court.
Corruption in Nigeria's judiciary is a significant concern, with the National Bureau of Statistics, that's the NBS, shedding light on the issue. According to a recent survey conducted by the NBS in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, Nigerian judges are amongst the biggest recipients of bribes in the country. This report, titled Corruption in Nigeria, Patterns and Trends, reveals that public officials in Nigeria received a staggering 721 billion naira in cash bribes in 2023. Unfortunately, judges topped the list of the recipients, highlighting the pervasive nature of corruption in that sector. Well, joining me on the program at this time to discuss this is Debo Adeniro, is the Executive Director, Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership. I also have Anwar Musa Raspanjani. Anwar Musa Raspanjani is the Executive Director for the Center for Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center. Of course, both gentlemen joins me virtually. Thank you for your time, sir.
Good evening, Dapo.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's great to have you on the program. Let me start off with you, Mr. Debo. What do you make of this report by the NBS?
It is not surprising, because for so long we have seen a kind of perversion and denial of people of the deserved judgment. I mean, justice in various courts, and the accusation is not today. It has always been there. It was only when the former Chief Justice of Federation, the first female, Aloma Mukhtar, came to office that she started the process of sanitizing the judiciary, but she was not allowed to complete that assignment before she left. Several judges have been indicted in the past, and several judges are supposed to be on trial even by now. And you also know that majority of the Attorney General of Nigerian Federation have been accused of colluding with some of the public officials that have been accused of corruption, of one corruption or the other, in perversion of justice. All of these have summed up to lead to the public perception that they don't even want to go to court, that they don't need to go to court, because the court had turned out to be a marketplace for justice. I mean, the judicial officers that operates Nigeria judiciary seems to be businessmen and women who will only pander to the dictates of the highest bidder. And these have been embarrassing. And in fact, several businesses have folded up because they have lost, confidence in our judicial system. I'm talking about bribery as espoused by the NBS report. Several judges have been accused, directly or indirectly, of collecting bribes from litigants. And you also know that there was a time where men of DSS had to bust some judges' houses. A number of cash and other valuables were found in those houses.
Okay.
And somehow the cases, the cases just died natural death. You remember the case of Awukuleyin, who was the trial judge in the case of the former governor of Delta State, James Ibori. He actually dismissed 170 count charge, 10 or so of which Ibori pleaded guilty to in the United Kingdom, and they still use the same evidence, pieces of evidence.
Mr. Debo, let me come in here.
Yeah.
Let me come in here just quickly. I mean, one would also look at it and say that a lot of issues too, go on the way. You talked about the influence of politicians and all. Let me leave you for a moment and bring in, Anwar into the conversation here. Looking at, I don't know if you can hear me, Anwar. Anwar Musa Rasfanjani, can you hear me, sir?
Hear you.
All right. Now, let's bring it to specifics. We know that recently this current administration...
I can hear you very well. I can hear you.
Okay, great. This current administration, particularly within the FCT, decided to do a couple of, will I call it, remuneration review for the judges. Now, we know that for the judiciary, there was a general review in terms of their pay and all of that. And then some of them were even given, choice houses and landed properties in the FCT. And for many Nigerians, or some Nigerians, they would argue and say, you know what? You need to ensure that these judges are comfortable so that they will be incorruptible. While some will argue differently and say, no, it's a way of subtly, bringing them towards the side of the government so that at the end of the day, they pander to the whims and caprice of, the government of the day. What do you make of moves like this?
Thank you very much. We are facing a very serious deterioration of judicial integrity and independence in Nigeria. A situation whereby some politician will carefully select those who they will want to appoint to go to various courts. For example, you cannot just get appointed on the basis of merit to electoral tribunal and many other places where they consider there will be a kind of kickback. Unfortunately, many Nigerians are losing confidence, and once Nigerians lose confidence on the judiciary to be able to do justice to them, then you are encouraging not only anarchy but completely disapproval of our judicial system in the country, because politicians will tell you we'll meet in the court because they have already decided, they've already procured the judgment that will come in their favor. This is really bad and it's not good for our country. Secondly, judges will sit down and give a perpetual injunction against EFCC, ICPC that a corrupt person must not be even invited, must not be arrested, even his close associate and his family must not be invited or investigated. This is the kind of judges that we have now, which have actually undermined and destroyed judiciary in Nigeria. Therefore, there's every responsibility from the authority that matters to rise up to ensure that they do cleansing, internal cleansing in the judiciary, because some of these judges are bringing bad example, bad record, to the institution of judiciary and making judiciary to be for yourself. Because if a politician will beat his chest and tell you that, let's meet in court because he or she has done, terrible sin there, then that's really bad. Secondly, if a corrupt judge will give a perpetual injunction against anti-corruption agencies, not even invite, not investigate anybody, I think such kind of person must not be, as a judge. He or she should be, shown the way out, because they are actually destroying the whole foundation of justice in the country. And I think, corrupting the judges by what Wike is doing now is really terrible, because judiciary has independent budget. It has a budget as a independent, body in the country. They have their own money. Whatever they want to do, they could do. For the executive to now be selecting some judges and give them, choice areas and houses, as well as other, payables in terms of material thing, it is rather just, we are just actually corrupting those judges and making them to do whatever judgment they want to do. Now, as I speak to you, NGC is having a meeting, and one of the speakers is okay. For goodness sake, somebody who has a case in Rivers that is ongoing, somebody who has been accused of, bribing judges, why should you even invite him to be a guest speaker in such important forum? So I think judiciary must rise up to clean itself from this kind of allegation or accusation or lack of confidence that Nigerians are having against them. Okay. Secondly, access to justice in Nigeria, it's been extremely difficult and if not impossible for ordinary person.
Okay. I mean, you've said quite a couple of things, but I would like to bring Debo in to speak on this, particularly within the context of the role of the judiciary in the case of DELE FAROTIMI versus, Afe Babalola that is ongoing, and the Yahaya Bello case. I mean, these are two cases that the judiciary is playing a pivotal role in. I would like you to speak, with the role of the judiciary within this context.
Well, thank you very much. The Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, CACOL, has put out a statement that the police needed don't need to arrest DELE FAROTIMI. It could be, usually defamation are supposed to be civil procedure, but they say it's criminal defamation. I don't know what lawyers mean by that. But then he had been arrested. Of course, he wasn't a fugitive. He was not declared wanted. There is no record and no evidence that he was invited by the police and he refused to heed that invitation or to honor that invitation. So they didn't have to arrest him. Then the Nigeria police, he just won in the whole of Nigeria. They didn't have to whisk him away to Ekiti State, even if the defamation was as criminal as they mentioned it. Then it wasn't a kind of capital offense. So there was no need for the police to have handcuffed him, in order to take him to prison vehicles and all of that. That is a dramatization of impunity. But then we have seen that. Then even if he committed that offense, why is it that the Lagos command of the Nigeria police couldn't take up the challenge? He didn't. I'm not sure that he committed that offense in Ekiti State. Just because the accuser lives in Ekiti State doesn't mean that the offense was committed in Ekiti State. And DELE FAROTIMI could have been questioned. Before we go on a break, so far in handling this issue, has the judiciary been fair? Well, we can't say, because we do not want to dictate to the judiciary, because we are talking about separation of powers and checks and balances. So it is in the opinion of the court that he should be given a 15 million naira bill, that he should be he should submit his passport and all of those conditions. Those conditions in the face of it are too difficult. They are too heavy for the kind of offense that he was. Talk about the case of Yahaya Bello. It is still the same judiciary that is playing the same games. They have granted, Judiciary had granted Yaya Bello a kind of injunction even before the EFCC charged him. And the EFCC had appealed the injunctions. It was to come up on 20th of May, or was it April? And by 17th, the EFCC has bombarded his house. Well, the judiciary didn't have to grant a kind of injunction, just like it has been mentioned, that granting frivolous injunction is a death knell for the judiciary itself. Remember that Peter Odili still have perpetual injunction, that he's still enjoying against investigation and arrest. So basically, that's what led to something. And when that he had been returned to prison and his bail application was not granted.
Okay, Mr. Deva Adeniro, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Feet on the ground.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we need to go on a quick break.
No problem.
We need to go on a quick break. When we return, of course, we will definitely pick up. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, this is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and we are discussing a recent or a not so distant report by the NBS as regards the performance of public institutions, particularly a rating of the judiciary. I have with me as guests two amazing gentlemen. They're still with me. Anwar Musa Rasfanjani is the Executive Director for Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, and also DELE Adeniro, the Executive Director for Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Now, Anwar Musa, I would be coming to you right now with my question. The same question I asked Debo, and that is the role of the judiciary, particularly with the case of DELE Farotimi and Yaya Bello. Has the court or the judiciary been fair so far?
So, to be honest to you, Nigerians in the first place have been wondering why this injustice of, in the first place, arresting this very gentleman in the manner that he was arrested and bundled like a criminal. And this is what is ridiculing the country every now and then. The international community is watching our, criminal justice system. The international community is watching very well how some individuals are abusing their offices, because what has happened to this comrade is simply some people who believe that they have power, they have to misuse the power, violently and brutally violate the right of Nigerians. And I don't think it's good, for the image of the country. And even those who perpetrated this action, their reputation has already gone down. And therefore, there's no gain in perpetrating injustice and making, someone to look as if he had committed any criminal offense. Even if somebody had committed an offense, they say procedure, they say, process that you could actually seek for redress on whatever you think you have been wrong against. But to use the state machinery to perpetrate this, I think tomorrow people will answer this impunity. No matter how long it will take, there will be a time when people will have to answer this impunity. And the people that perpetrated this definitely will go in a very bad record as people who are aiding impunity and people who are aiding, brutal violation of the rights of Nigerians. So if the court, in its own, fairness, they think that in this country where somebody is not a looter, where will he get the kind of money for bail? I think some of these judges, they need to know that not every Nigerian is a thief. It's a corrupt person.
That brings me to this specific question. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Amount of money for a bail, it means that you have assumed that everyone is looter. This guy does not have this money. And you have made it impossible for him to do that. It's like giving with one hand and taking with one hand. For goodness sake, it's just like the judge that give, bail to the children that were in the first place illegally, unfairly, inhumanly arrested, and he was asking them to pay huge amount of millions, which even their parents could not even raise transport fare, come to Abuja, but he was asking for millions of naira for each person, for each child to be bailed. Something is wrong in the psyche of some of these judges. We need to stop this kind of madness that is going on in Nigeria. This is not administrative justice system. What we are saying is just gang of people who just want to continue to ridicule the country.
All right, thank you so much. Just before we go, because we are really pressed for time, Debo Adenero, 30 seconds. I would just like to take your final thoughts on this. 30 seconds, please.
Well, I believe that the judiciary has smeared its own image, and it is only the judiciary that can launder it anyway. And of course, there are so many complaints against the judiciary. The NJC had not been helping matters because the petitions before them are usually not treated with urgency that they desire. Then most of their men and women that have committed various serious offenses against the Nigerian people, against the Nigeria as a nation, have not been adequately brought to book. Granted that a few of them have actually been disciplined. Michael Adwaka, Justice Awu Kulenye, and a few others have been disciplined in a way. But then those who deserve to be disciplined are still much more than what we have seen. So they have to cleanse themselves. They have to kind of launder their own image. Even the law officers, the lawyers, also need disciplinary action being taken against them when they aid criminals to escape justice. That will be a way to have a kind of impartial judiciary that we deserve.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time on the program. I deeply appreciate your, of course, insights and inputs. Thank you once again.
It's not even hidden that Nigeria is corrupt. Nigeria is eating so much with corruption, because how can everything happen in Nigeria, they tend to go to court? That's because they have bought in, they know that they bought the court and they bought all the judges there, so there's nothing that you can do, you can win them. Because after all the evidences provided by the Labour Party last election, the judges declare they have evidence is void because of what? They have been bought with corruption. Because P2B was that a man that will go for corruption, because he said that if a man should become an excellency, that means your way to the position should be excellent. But last election, was it excellent? No. Me and you know that it was not in any way excellent. It was all corruption, and they bought all our judiciary, and then I tell them that we should go to court if we don't like the result. Here is the clear evidence, because they spent this lot of money in just corruption last year. And don't forget that they exposed that the money recovered, or the money that these kidnappers got as the money that the kidnappers got as ransom, we are ranging 2.2 trillion naira, not 1 trillion. 2.2 trillion naira. That was what was spent in ransom this year, just for 1 year in kidnappers. That means this government, because it's not possible that the government don't have hands in this kidnappers happen. So that means there's a cut from there. So they are just all for their own personal pockets. How do we get to this level where the government don't even care about those they are leading? They are all for themselves, for their pockets, and they don't care what the masses is going through. All they want is for themselves, only for themselves, and for themselves. So I'll see you guys in my next video. If you enjoyed the video, in the comment section. If you like this video, you can comment and share the video to do the same, and also like our videos. Don't forget to subscribe. This is the channel where you get the current updates about what's happening in Nigeria, and our news are all verified. I will see you guys in my next video. Stay tuned, guys.